Hey everyone, and welcome to Ecopsych EXP, where we take a stroll through the forest of eco-psychological themes in video games. My name is Casey, and I'm a doctoral candidate at Veritas Graduate Institute. Thanks so much for joining me. My core message is that video games can and do foster ecological empathy and combat apathy and doomism. I love video games, and I see them as a force for so much good, and I hope that this always comes through in my videos. Today I'm going to be sharing footage and an interview with the development team True Ronin Games, a passionate indie studio. Their newest game, Eternal Haunt, is a first-person survival horror game set in old Japan, inspired by Japanese folklore and Amnesia: The Dark Descent, where instead of managing your sanity, you're surviving the coldness of death. Set in a bamboo forest during a winter night, Old Man Kiyoshi awakens to a snowstorm and is distraught to discover his grandson, Mosaku, is missing. While searching for him, Kiyoshi stumbles upon an abandoned hut. What he thought was a place of respite from the cold turns out to become his worst nightmare. Unable to escape this frozen hell, he's haunted by the resident demon spirit, Yuki-onna. Navigating through the cold labyrinth, your temperature slowly drops, causing your movements to slow. The colder you become, the more vulnerable you are to Yuki-onna's icy grasp. Your only hope for survival is to find warmth. No two journeys are the same. Puzzle solutions are uniquely generated, offering a fresh challenge on every playthrough, preventing repetition and requiring you to adapt and think critically in every encounter. Items are crucial for survival, offering practical uses like solving puzzles or aiding in navigation. Some items also hold deeper significance, with descriptions that reveal fragments of Yuki-onna's tragic story, slowly unraveling the mystery of her past. Every object you find could be the key to both your survival and understanding the haunting world around you. Whoa, this feels weird. It's been close to 2 months, I think. It's been a while. Um, I've just been swamped with things, but I've been waiting so long to be able to come on and play Eternal Haunt by True Ronin Games. And the developers are fantastic. They helped me troubleshoot my way through getting this to work on my system. And I'm so excited to experience the demo they have up right now, which just was recently updated. So be sure to check that out. Okay. New game.
模索を見つけないといけない。
I need to find Mosaku.
こんなに寒くなったのは初めてだ。
Does look quite cold. Bonfires. Heat sources will restore body temperature, preventing a cold death. Okay. That would be good to know. I first asked them, Eternal Haunt beautifully captures an eerie and atmospheric version of old Japan. Could you share a bit about how your team developed this environment to feel both frightening yet still alluring? They responded, the idea of setting it in old Japan was so we could peel back the distractions of the modern age like mobile phones, electric lights you can turn on with the flick of a switch, etc. Because without these, now we have limitations and have to find almost organic ways to light a scene to make it feel scary. It also removes the, yeah, but if I had a gun, type thoughts of the players' minds because now they're thrust into a world where only the rules of the past matter here, which in turn allows room for the supernatural to seem more believable. We've heavily researched that era, and one thing we loved was the flow of nature into interiors. So exploring the environment, we have stark contrasts of the beauty of nature against the ruins of an old wooden Japanese home. How do I enter?
もう帰る時間だ。
Time to go home. Doors. Use the door by holding X and moving L. Okay. Would help if I was trying to move the door in the right direction. Okay. I then asked, I'm fascinated by your decision to center the game around the figure of Yuki-onna. What drew you to this particular folklore, and how do you hope players will relate to such a tragic but brutal character? They said, in many cultures around the world, there is always the typical horror story or legend of the woman in white ghost. As this is our first horror game, it seemed fitting to pay homage to this classic horror trope. With the folklore story of Yuki-onna, it was only after watching the segment The Woman of the Snow in the film Kwaidan by Masaki Kobayashi that it really cemented the idea that we had to create our own homage too. It was the allure of beauty versus terror, how she could almost be unassuming and innocent yet morph into this ice-cold predator. Her motivation originates from loss, pain, and grief. We think players will gravitate towards the tragedy that has befallen her with clues and pieces of her story that they can put together. Take up this lantern, maybe. Okay. Lantern. Lantern can be equipped from the inventory or by pressing. Okay, to open inventory menu. Here's your inventory. Combine, examine, and equip items here. So now we have light. Anything else to see here? How about this one? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Did I not open you wide enough? Okay. Maybe this. There we go. The cold itself acts like another character in the game. Could you describe how you designed the cold to interact with players psychologically, adding layers of tension and immersion? You're in Yuki-onna's realm, and initially the game didn't have that time pressure. The cold adds another layer of panic because you don't, and shouldn't, get to walk around in peace. The cold is an extension of Yuki, and though you cannot see her, we wanted to give the player that feeling of her constant presence. The player walks around looking for clues, solving puzzles, finding items, but they have to mentally map up where the nearest heat source is to warm up. They cannot afford to get lost without a plan. After a while, we want them to question whether they're getting colder because of a lack of warmth or they're getting cold because Yuki-onna is near. Come back, light. Where'd you go? Tight spaces. Press B to move low. Use it to access tight spaces. Sounds like a plan. Have to press it again this time. Yeah, back up. Some snow coming into the house. Release. Discovery. Press X when you see the symbol to examine your surroundings. You might uncover clues or hints. Let's uncover a clue and or hint. Your algorithm for generating scares sounds intriguing. Can you elaborate on how this tailored unpredictability enhances players' emotional connections and prevents complacency during gameplay? The answer: it was born out of a desire to keep scares fresh on repeated playthroughs. The game is picking up on how you're progressing. This data and more is being fed into our algorithm, which determines when to scare you. The when is determined based on if more tension needs building or the tension needs to be released. The outcome of which is then sorted through an intensity, high, medium, low hierarchy of scares and events to show to the player at that chosen moment. We think this adds enough unpredictability as their expectations are subverted, especially if they've watched a playthrough already. Depending on the player's playstyle and experience with horror games, being cautious or reckless with how cold you get is a big factor. Okay. Is that all for this room? Thinking so. Luckily, there's another room. Another clue. Oh, no, don't crouch at the clue. Look at the clue. Okay. Some sakura blossoms, it looks like. Survival horror often grapples with feelings of helplessness or doomism. In what ways does Eternal Haunt inspire hope or resilience even amidst the relentless icy pursuit? Their response: well, you don't have to look any further than our protagonist, Old Man Kyoshi, for hope or resilience. He awakens in the middle of a blizzard, with his grandson missing, and what's the first thing he does? He looks for him. And he doesn't stop until he finds Masaku. Even in his elderly age, he finds a haunted hut mysteriously standing in the middle of nowhere. Then, what proceeds can only be described as a living nightmare in which he must undertake puzzle solving and look for clues for Masaku all the while an evil spirit haunts him. His motivation is love and a sense of duty. He cares for his grandson even if it's at the sacrifice of his well-being. Anything else of note?
ここにいるのか。
Right here. A clue, a clue. Love all these beautiful floral illustrations as clues. The game evokes a sense of claustrophobia. How did you balance creating an enclosed, oppressive environment while offering players a meaningful sense of exploration? One thing we found with some indie horror games is the corridors tend to be really wide, which can take you out of feeling claustrophobic because there is so much empty space. So then you have these paths that are not building the uneasiness and sense of being trapped. In Eternal Haunt, we give you that feeling with these narrow paths and shoji sliding doors that kind of blend with the corridors. This is to purposely create confusion and tension so the players are asking, oh, is this a door? Is it safe to slide open this door? Should I just keep walking down the corridor? What's in this room? And so when we funnel the players' movements down this path, they can choose to systemically explore the rooms along the way, possibly to discover clues, find items, or even get jump scared. Yes, you can traverse quickly down the corridor and maybe move to the next area, but you'll have even more questions left unanswered, so the player is rewarded if they explore. You do not open. Do you open? No. It's really pretty. Your game uses folklore to explore themes of tragedy and loss. How do you feel video games, particularly horror, can uniquely foster human to human and human to nature empathy? They said, it's the peak form of escapism. To see a character befall a great tragedy could offer some respite from one's own hardships in life. In Eternal Haunt, you're dealing with the idea of loss, with Kyoshi losing his grandson to a blizzard in a forest and his protective instincts urging him on, even if his pursuits seem futile. With Yuki, the loss of her children and how that's transformed her into this evil spirit unable to rest, driven with a deep sadness and anger. You empathize with these characters because they seem helpless, especially in Kyoshi's case. You take over his character and it almost seems pointless, to essentially lose and try to find a child in this dark labyrinth. With the freezing cold acting like an obstacle, the environment is harsh and relentless. It humbles you when you play because you're fighting with all these elements. You'll lose just so you can win. You're putting yourself in scenarios you wouldn't normally imagine and acting out virtual choices to progress this story. The odds are stacked against you. You feel for him. I think this is unique to horror games rather than films or books because in those types of media, the story is set and the boundaries for unique interactions from the characters are fixed. A character in a horror film has already decided whether to open a door or not to a monster, while in games you are given that choice and the options are many for you to decide. You understand the repercussions and the experience is almost firsthand. I hear a crow. Why a crow? Cause. Am I going in circles? Wait. Door. You're a clue that's not a flower. You're one of those puzzly type deals. I don't know what I meant to do with you. Oh, am I meant to like count the blossoms in the paintings? Let's try that. I asked them, with environmental storytelling at the forefront, what role did ecological elements like the bamboo thickets, winter storms, or isolated fires play in encouraging players to reflect on their relationship with the natural world? I think the Japanese aesthetics played a larger role in this relationship than we initially imagined. In Japan, Shinto is a practice-oriented spirituality that sees the sacred in the natural environment. It's about showing respect and gratitude to nature, trying to coexist with the natural world rather than dominate it. And in our research of interiors, we took this into account, making sure we stay true to those aesthetics. Whether it be the tatami mats made of straw or shoji door screens made of paper. Everything in the environment modeled had to take the practice of Shinto into account and be accurate. At the second bonfire, you notice it sits in the middle of a courtyard, which in of itself is sat in the middle of the house. In Western culture, having a garden in the middle of the house is not the norm. Players at this moment will start to notice the snow and bamboo trees slowly take over some of the rooms as they progress. Some might wonder if the rooms were always like this or became this way through neglect. But maybe the natural world is starting to fight back, rightfully trying to engulf this space. Oh, we're getting chilly. If this whole iced over vision thing is anything to go by. Can this little bonfire save us? I love Good work. Don't recommend. To chase back down our clues. Who's got the clue? You're an entirely different flower. Wait, no. You're part of it, I think. I'm losing it. So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blossoms. The emotional bond between Old Man Kyoshi and his grandson Mosaku feels tenderly personal and universally relatable. In portraying this intergenerational relationship, what deeper reflections about family, loss, and love did your team hope to evoke, especially within the harsh realities of your game's world? The response: the characters' emotional choices truly drive the drama. We wanted players to feel Kyoshi's fear of losing Mosaku and Yuki-onna's anguish at having lost her children, and to realize that in both of these extremes there is the same foundation: love. By experiencing these two sides of unconditional love under dire circumstances, players might think about their own loved ones and the lengths they would go to protect them. Even amid supernatural horror, Eternal Haunt is ultimately a story about family. It's about how love can give you the strength to survive the unimaginable, and how the pain of loss can linger like a ghost, shaping every action. The bond between Kyoshi and Mosaku feels not only personal to us as creators, but emotionally real to anyone who plays, as losing a loved one is something we all must learn to live with. 6 blue. Does it let us go to 6? Eternal Haunt emphasizes finding warmth as crucial to survival. Could you speak about warmth not just as physical heat, but symbolically within the narrative? It's life or death for Kyoshi. Yes, the physical heat he gets from a bonfire heals, but maybe the fire is a reminder? For if the fire still burns, he must not give up his search for his grandson. He must think the fire is on his side, a spirit that is constantly summoning him, you, the player, after dying until your destiny is fulfilled. For Yuki, the fire is a menace. After all, she is the woman of the snow. She avoids the warmth maybe because of what it represents, a previous life or a chance to change, to finally rest. She might think Kyoshi, or you, the player, has brought the fire with him to come and finally destroy her. But maybe the fire is the heart of this haunting domain, representing the spirits of the natural world. They, the spirits, have detected immense pain and grief from both sides and given them both a reason to exist. There's an argument that the bonfire is a ghost itself, as how is it lit? Who stokes it? Because Yuki is afraid of it, and Kyoshi is a stranger to it. Okay. I don't even think you were on the puzzle, were you? One of you. I asked, Old Man Kyoshi is not a typical video game protagonist. What inspired your team's choice to center an older character in a genre often populated by younger leads? And how did this shape the themes or emotional stakes of the game? The idea of having an old man be the protagonist made a lot of sense. Having an older character gave a reason as to why his base speed for moving was somewhat slow and that he can only sprint in short bursts. We thought it would be refreshing to see this type of character become the focal point. Because everyone can in some way relate to this old person, whether that be someone in your family, friends of that age, etc. Someone of that profile can be very vulnerable and in constant danger if they're not careful, and we think this adds another side of panic and stress when playing. As you approach a random puzzle, you are confused at first, just as Kyoshi is. You mimic each other in those moments. Games are escapism, but if most of the stories are dominated by younger leads, none of the experiences we get will differ. It becomes monotonous and everything feels generic. At the very least, your protagonist should feel like they belong in this world and not shoehorned in. Kyoshi is past his prime, he is sentimental and protective, yet cannot do much harm because of his old age. We think this lets players know from the get-go they have to be careful. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purple. 7 purple. I immediately messed it up. 5 purple, 7 pink. 5 purple, 7 pink. Math, not my strong suit. 5 purple, 7 pink. 5 purple, 7 pink. Can I retain so I should wear those? 5 purple, 7 pink. I'm standing on the brink. The abandoned hut that initially appears as a sanctuary quickly transforms into a place of horror. Could you talk about the intentional subversion of a safe space and how this impacts the player's sense of security and vulnerability throughout the game? In the original story of Yuki-onna, two woodcutters find shelter in a hut from a blizzard in which one eventually dies by Yuki's cold, icy breath. This initial goal from the woodcutters to find that safe space is what inspired our version of Yuki-onna's home. We wanted her home to feel almost like a mirage at first. You're stuck in the forest in the middle of nowhere during a blizzard, but it almost seems like the tree line is acting like a corridor in itself, drawing you towards this place. The hut intentionally looks tiny from the outside. The subversion doesn't end once you step inside the supposedly abandoned hut. We want the player to feel trapped in a supernatural world once inside. And so maybe you open the door to one of the rooms, which then opens up dozens of interlocking rooms. We're catching you off guard. You're just as clueless as Kyoshi is. You'll never feel safe now because every door could lead to somewhere new, making you feel lost, further away from Osaku. So the environment kind of has a mind of its own you have to be wary of. It's just another form of pressure and stress we wanted to add on top of what the player is going through. And to find the puzzle. I asked them, indie games often carry a uniquely personal stamp of their creators. Could you share a moment from your team's own lives or cultural experiences that directly influence an aspect of Eternal Haunt? So at the moment, True Ronin Games is a 3-person team. Years ago, we all met up in Poland, where our 3D modeler is based, for a month of game dev, in which we were making a Japanese-influenced Souls-like game for mobile. I remember the weather the most. It was cold and snowing when we arrived. It was snowing practically the whole month we stayed in Poland. Snow built up on the ground was thick, almost knee-high. We stayed in our friend's old family home, which he was renovating, and he had an old wooden garage that kind of looked like a barn attached to the house. Most days we would start by taking an hour's stroll in the woods, which was quite literally behind his house. On these walks, we would talk about the game, ideas we had, and sometimes stopping to draw the environment. Sometimes we would go exploring abandoned houses or buildings. Albeit the game was never completed after we left Poland, but that month-long trip is permanently etched in my mind. I think we always wanted to venture into horror games, but we're not sure when to take that step. When coming up with an idea afterwards, it made total sense to call upon our experiences during that trip. The exploration, the feeling of the cold, trying to start a fire at night, letting our imaginations run wild during walks in the forest. All of it combined with our love of Japanese culture and horror films. It was the perfect recipe. Purple. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your process, intentions, or hopes for this game in the future? The floor is yours. Our hope is we are able to turn Eternal Haunt into something of an anthology series of horror games featuring different cultures. Standalone games that might perhaps share that title. But for now, there's a ton of features we want to implement to make this game the best it can be. We know there's a lot of potential to make this one of a kind. We're always asking each other how we feel about the game in its current state, staying humble and doing what's needed to scare the players. Because that's our real goal. If we have scared you and it becomes unforgettable, then we are happy. Also, we wanted to take this time out to say thank you to Casey for giving us this platform and opportunity and letting us talk more about Eternal Haunt. Thanks again. Eternal Haunt. Well, solved the puzzle, retained the information, got totally jump scared. This is exciting. The demo's short, but it's like very atmospheric and really fun to play. Extended demo coming soon. Please wishlist on Steam for updates. This is really cool. This like amnesia dark descent inspired like freezing coldness meter instead of like madness. So I'm excited to see how that plays out more with like the fires if they're interspersed throughout the whole home, or if you have to keep coming back to a central fire. A lot of questions. Can't wait for the answers. Thank you so much. True Ronin Games. I would just like to extend a heartfelt thank you to True Ronin Games for their time and incredibly thoughtful responses. I truly enjoyed connecting with them and learning more about all the inspirations and ideas behind this game. A release date for Eternal Haunt has not yet been announced, but please be sure to wishlist the game on Steam so you don't miss out. Until we meet again, please feel so very free to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of this little ecosystem.